Welcome into America's Retirement Headquarters, home of the Retirement Guys Formula and America's Medicare Associates. Securities offered through Peak Brokerage Services, LLC. Advisory services offered through the Retirement Guys Formula, a registered investment advisor. America's Retirement Headquarters, America's Medicare Associates, and the Retirement Guys Formula are separate and independent entities from Peak Brokerage Services, LLC. Thanks for joining us today here on America's Retirement Headquarters, home of the Retirement Guys Formula and America's Medicare Associates, online at americasretirementheadquarters.com and available by calling 419-794-3030. That's 419-794-3030. On today's show, we're going to talk about the latest wrinkle in President Biden's proposed tax hikes, what investors should be doing if they're concerned about higher inflation, and is 4% a safe withdrawal rate? But first, let me check in with the man of the half hour here, Nolan Baker, Scott Kirshner. Glad to be with you guys. How you doing this weekend?
Good afternoon, America. Hey, we're doing great here. It is summertime. Mm-hmm. The weather is hot. I love this time of year. I mean, it's just great.
It is. It's a great time.
Golfing and...
Yeah, golf. I've got scout camp coming up with the boys, getting ready to go live on a deserted island down south in Florida.
Oh, gosh, I don't know about that. He's talking about that in the office. You know, hey, I'm going on a deserted island, and it's like no contact because he's not going to have any service out there. I don't know, man.
Should be amazing.
Kudos to you. I commend you for doing that. I think that'd be cool.
I must admit, I was a little worried. I had to swim the length of a football field to pass my swim test, and at 45, I thought maybe I was going to be more of a submarine, but well, luckily I did make
I'm
it.
glad, obviously, the fact that you're with us means that you made it across. And I think honestly, this conversation right here is a great snapshot about people and their plans. Like for Nolan, obviously, and his kids, that sounds like a fantastic thing. For Scott, and I'll go away and myself, not so much, but that's what it comes down to with your retirement. What might be great for maybe somebody wants to live on a desert island in their retirement. I know people out there, as a matter of fact, who would, whereas other people really just want the hustle and bustle and to maybe travel places a little bit more domesticated. And that's why it all boils down to having a retirement plan to what you want to achieve in retirement and crafting that plan, not using some cookie cutter approach. And that's not something you find at America's Retirement Headquarters. There's no cookie-cut approach, one size fits all, because one size doesn't fit everybody out there. So something to keep in mind as you listen to this week's show. Again, the number 419-794-3030. Guys, hacking is back in the news again. A couple weeks ago, hackers shut down a major oil distributor, and more recently, they hit the world's largest meat supplier. And of course, they're always threatening financial accounts, and the Go Banking Rates website points out that our retirement accounts make an especially attractive target. Do you have any advice for keeping our accounts safe from hackers?
Yeah, we've got some great advice for you. And, you know, even if you're on a deserted island, hackers are still trying to get your information.
Yeah,
so
true.
It is something you got to be really, really careful about. In fact, with COVID, not only have we seen the spike with COVID, but you've seen a major spike, you know, with hacking. And I think you also look at the United States. I don't think that Trump would put up with that crap. You know, he would not allow that type of thing to happen. And
Absolutely not.
I don't think people take Biden as seriously. And we're going to talk about Biden's tax plan and what he's planning on doing with taxes here in a little bit. But this is something that you do need to take, you know, some good personal responsibility to protect your information, because it can be an absolute disaster if some criminal is able to get your information. You also want to keep in mind that the number one attack that's going on right now is what is called phishing. And I'm not talking about the outdoor activity of catching perch on Lake Erie. What I'm talking about is an email that you get. So, you know, keep in mind, majority of the time that hackers are getting through to consumers is through emails. It looks like a legitimate email. You click on something and all of a sudden you've given them, you know, access to your computer and your information there. So a couple of good pointers: change your password frequently. This is not only one of the best ways to defend your accounts, it's also one of the easiest. It's helped you, you know, stay one step ahead. So something you can do this weekend after the show: go in, change some of your passwords, create a new password for the year. Make your username different than your real name. Most people think it's real easy to just use first name, last name, but you kind of want to have passwords and usernames that are very unique.
Well, yeah, if you think that, so does the hacker. Let's search this first. He's probably got a first name, last name is a username. And you're right. The easiest thing to do is just change your password frequently, like you said a second ago, but make sure you use a very, very unique username.
Yeah, you know, something else that has become very popular in the last couple of months is multi-factor authentication. So What happens with that is you'll get a text message on your phone or you'll get an email confirmation. It is one extra step. Sometimes it seems a little painful, but when you're trying to protect your retirement accounts, you're trying to protect your personal information, that multi-factor, that second step of protecting your identity can be a great thing to do. Obviously, you don't want to discuss your information in public places. Don't be talking over the phone. Be very careful when you're on the public Wi-Fi, what type of accounts that you're using. But another one that really jumped out at me, something that I didn't really think much about, but when I was looking up this topic, is provide fake answers to your security questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I assist a lot of clients with signing up for the Affordable Care Act health insurance, and you go through a plethora of different questions there. And I tell them, what is your favorite cuisine? And they go, oh, gosh, I like this. I go, you know what? It could be anything. It could be purple. It could be the sunshine. It could be anything you want as long as we know what it is. So when they ask that question, you get back in. And a lot of people, my favorite food is pizza. Well, gosh, that's easy for a hacker to guess that one, You just go through all of the different types of food, Italian, hamburgers, whatever. But, a lot of people don't think about that. And to be quite honest with you, Nolan, I didn't either. I didn't think about, make up something that's totally fake. Nobody else is going to know about it.
Absolutely. So, this is something as well, if you're listening and, you're a retiree or even, an adult, think about your parents too. So this is something that hopefully you'll sit down and talk to them about. Again, the number one thing that's happening right now under the attack is phishing. So if you spend some time, do a little bit of research and how to keep your email safe, watch out for, emails that come in that look true. Don't ever put your personal information in there. Just another friendly reminder. So your helpful Saturday good news on protecting you from bad people.
Yeah, when you're phishing and you open an email, you're hooked, so to speak. And, when you get hooked like that and they get access to your computer, they can start searching through the computer and find, here's a folder called passwords. And then they have access to all of your passwords out there if you keep it on your computer like that.
Now, I'll admit, there are some of those phishing emails that actually look really authentic. I've almost fallen for one or two of them, in the past year alone. And so if it's something where you're a little suspicious, maybe take a step away from it and then come back to it. And if it still seems suspicious, maybe just go ahead and close that email out. Just be wary. And that advice about the fake answers to security questions, I hadn't thought about that either, but I think that is pretty great, something to keep in mind going forward in the future. This is America's Retirement Headquarters here on News Radio 1370 WSPD and 92.9 FM. 419-794-3030 is the number. The Fed says that all these higher prices we're paying are to be expected because the economy is returning to normal. But Allianz economist Mohamed El-Arian tells CNBC he's concerned that the Fed is actually heading, into uncharted territory.
What worries me is the inflation side. What I'm seeing suggests it's not simply transitory. And the last thing we need is the Fed to slam on the brakes further down the road. We have no historical experience where the Fed has been late and we haven't ended up in a recession. That's what worries me. I don't think inflation is transitory, and I worry about the Fed being late in responding.
So if inflation is not transitory, that means that it's here to stay and that it's a long-term problem. We'd like to think that our buying power is going to hold up over the long term, but is this something that could threaten our overall quality of life in retirement?
It's definitely a big threat right now, and I think it's something that it's important that all investors are looking at. And there's two things that investors need to be looking at right now. One is the eroding factor of how it's going to impact their long-term purchasing power down the road in 10, 20, or 30 years, making sure that they're looking at their written retirement income plan and using inflation as a factor, and that number has been kind of built into the plan. But also looking at it more in a short-term basis. Again, we talked about this on a past show where the last time that inflation jumped over 4%, which it recently did, 8 out of the 9 times the market in the short term ended up lower. So it's another red flag that's kind of going off. Good time to be a little bit careful. But I would say that inflation is definitely here. It looks like it's here to stay for a while. Unfortunately, our government has made it a situation where doesn't really pay to go back to work. You might as well just sit and collect money. And now what that's done is that's forced a lot of higher wage offers. You see offers at the fast food restaurants. They'll give you an iPhone, or they'll give you, instead of $10 an hour, now $15 an hour. And that's what's causing this long-term inflationary problem. Of course, you've got the global shortage that's been going on. You've got major higher prices in energy or lumber or construction or
Everything.
all those categories. So it is a real serious issue. And I think if you're listening today and you haven't stress tested your portfolio, that is the key takeaway there with inflation.
That's a great point. We go to dinner and they've got posted on the door now. They've taken down masks are mandatory, and now they're posting our prices may be higher due to demand. And, it's crazy. I've been looking for a golf cart, and I stopped at a couple of places. Nolan and I live in the same neighborhood here, and he's got a golf cart and I don't, so I got to try to keep up with him, But you can't find them. And the ones you can find, the prices are so inflated. I stopped at a local store here to ask some question about them. They said, good luck. We don't have anything in stock. My wife and I went to dinner, and, they've got 4 people working in this, fine dining restaurant. And we were there for an hour and a half, and the prices were higher because, talking about the last segment, they're hacking the meat companies. It's crazy. It's impacting everything. And, I think that these hackers, when you look at an opportunity like COVID or any stressful opportunity out there, you get people coming out of the woodwork. This is an excuse for poor service. I mean, you go to a restaurant, and if the service is terrible, well, we're short-staffed because of COVID. Or the food isn't that great. Well, we got new cooks because of COVID. It's an excuse, and I don't know, man. For me personally, it's very, very frustrating. I don't know. That's my 2 cents of rant on that.
Going back to the whole inflation thing and just demand, which is stretching a lot of industries pretty thin. Real estate, we've talked about that before. I've got a friend of mine who is a realtor in Atlanta, and she'll send me a text now and then. She'll go, properties that she's listing or properties that are just listed otherwise in Atlanta. And I lived there for years, and I could kind of gauge the prices. She goes, look at this 2-bedroom house or whatever, and guess how much they're asking for. And I'll always, shoot a price back, and I'm always wrong. They're always asking for much more, and then come to find out that it's selling for much more than that because of the demand. And it's crazy, and I do worry about those people who are taking out those loans who may be, in over their heads, taking on more than they can chew. But inflation, again, even in quote-unquote normal circumstances, inflation was always going to be a factor in your retirement. Over the course of a 30-year retirement, your buying power is going to be cut in half over the long haul, and that may be getting accelerated right now. So you need to have that game plan put in. You need to have that stress test, like Nolan mentioned, run on your plan right now to see how it can withstand inflation, whether it be accelerated, whether it be traditional. And if there are things that need to be done, changes that need to be made, it's better to find out now than down the road when you're wondering how you're going to make ends meet. If you don't have a plan, all the more reason to pick up the phone and give a call, I think, to America's Retirement Headquarters. The number is 419-794-3030. Once again, 419-794-3030. And online, americasretirementheadquarters.com. There is a new wrinkle to one of President Biden's proposed tax hikes, and we're going to talk about that when we come back from the break.
There was a time when the answer was
$1 million.
$1 million. $1
million. $1 million.
$1 million.
The question? How much is a lot of money? Think about this. During the 80s, there were about 500,000 millionaires in the U.S. Today, there are over 18.6 million. There are millions of millionaires. The point is this. If you've saved $1 million for retirement, congratulations. But even if you haven't, that's your fortune. Whether you carry that label of middle-class millionaire or not, Nolan Baker and the team at America's Retirement Headquarters can show you how to take those hard-earned dollars and create years of retirement happiness. When you do the math on your retirement, it's more about the number you get per month than the amount you've saved. Call America's Retirement Headquarters at 419-794-3030. That's 419-794-3030. Or online at americasretirementheadquarters.com. Sifting through your closet in the morning, do you ever wonder,
Barb, which collar looks better, the blue one or the white one?
They're both about the same, aren't they?
The team at America's Retirement Headquarters thinks so. In fact, they're exactly the same. When it comes to your retirement, it doesn't matter whether you wore a blue collar or white collar to work. What matters is that you're prepared to enjoy the retirement you've always dreamed of. Whether it's developing lifetime income, what to do about Social Security, even protecting your savings against an unpredictable market, America's Retirement Headquarters can help you develop a retirement strategy designed to suit your individual needs. Call 419-794-3030. That's 419-794-3030. The color of your shirt? Well, that's entirely up to you.
Iconic. Ferris Bueller's Day Off turns 35 this week. It was one of the top grossing movies of 1986 and has since become a classic. Not just that, but this song as well. Matthew Broderick says, just about every day somebody comes up to him and says, hey Ferris, is this your day off? I'm sure that doesn't get old at all for him. Welcome back to America's Retirement Headquarters. 419-794-3030 is the number. 419-794-3030. And online, americasretirementheadquarters.com. You know, we've all heard of the so-called 4% rule. If you spend 4% of your portfolio in the first year of retirement and then adjust that amount by inflation each of the following years, your nest egg should last 30 years. Should. But a piece in MarketWatch claims that doesn't necessarily work anymore, especially when you factor in the fees, the taxes, and the other costs. Guys, let's talk about making sure that our portfolio does, in fact, last a long time.
Well, I think you got to be careful with the 4% rule. You know, there's some guidelines in this industry, but everybody's situation is fairly unique. You also have to take a look at where we're at and time-wise, too. So people that are expecting to retire soon could be facing what's called a worst-case scenario as a result of the elevated stock prices and record low bond yield. So, you know, right now, with the market being at an all-time high, heaven forbid somebody retires, has too much money at risk in the stock market, takes a big loss, and or investors who are trying to live off of traditional fixed income investments like bond yields with, you know, how low they are. It makes that 4% rule a little bit challenging. So that's why you got to think a little bit outside of the box. Got a good video on this if you want to check it out on our YouTube channel. Just type in America's Retirement Headquarters. Watch the video on the independent income system. It kind of walks you through where I see opportunities and threats right now. But for those people, giving you another example, who retired in the year 2000, you know, that 4% safe rule will likely fail well before the 30 years because if you remember from 2000 to 2010, it was kind of called the lost decade with the crashes that we had in there. Investors really didn't get anywhere. All of a sudden, you're taking, 4% out and your portfolio goes down by 30%. You're in big, big trouble. So there are things that you can do about that. Again, the independent income system, making sure you have buckets of money designed for safety, bulk up on some of your safer money that you're going to need over the next 5 years. Know what you own for the long term. Try to cut out those fees and expenses. And speaking of taxes, let's jump into that topic.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we teased it up at the beginning of the show. President Biden is confirming reports that he wants his big capital gains tax hike to be retroactive to April of this year. CNBC's Robert Frank says that's not the way it's usually done.
There have been retroactive income tax increases before, but never have we had a retroactive capital gains tax increase. Treasury saying this was needed to prevent investors from avoiding the tax by selling before that tax hike takes effect. So all the planning that people were hoping to do or planning to do basically is null and void because if it goes through as proposed, it would start April 28th.
You know, I had a conversation with my boss at the end of last year about retroactive back pay. That's a great time to mention the word retroactive. But when it comes to taxation, not so much. Guys, is this true? Is there really no way now to plan for this tax hike?
Yeah, I mean, what a disaster this president is. And, the policies and what they're trying to put in place with, going out and attacking people. And ultimately, the attack's going to be, I think, on the overwhelming majority of Americans. So hopefully it's not an area to fall asleep on. But you got to be careful. They announced this the Friday before Memorial Day weekend. Now, how convenient is that? And, one of the big surprises in that Biden administration's first budget is exactly what we're talking about, which is the proposed capital gains tax hike and how that could be retroactive. There are some things to think about. So if you're listening today, don't get overly excited yet. It's just proposed, number one. Number two, the proposal really is the big impact is for people that have household incomes of in excess of $1 million. And then what the president's looking to do is nearly double the federal capital gains rate from 23.8% to 43.4%. Wow. But again, retroactive, as they mentioned, is not something that we have historically seen in the U.S. history, but we have seen some precedent with states. In fact, California had a retroactive tax hike that went into effect. So, we have seen this happen in the past. This would be one of the things that could come out and, one of the dangers that could happen. There are some other things that you can do, too. So, with proper planning and working with a professional, working with a good CPA, things that you need to be considering no matter what your income level is the timing of your sales. Take gains in years that maybe you have some other losses. You could also just avoid selling all or some of the holdings. So the capital gain is something that an investor, they realize at the point of sale of a non-retirement account. So those of you that are listening, this doesn't apply towards your retirement account. They're talking about taxable brokerage account. The other good news is so far, again, this is still on the block to see if this changes, but so far, the stepped-up basis is still in place for inherited assets. So if somebody owned a stock and it highly appreciated over their lifetime, and that stock was just held individually, when they passed away, whoever their beneficiary is has a stepped-up basis under the current law, and those taxes are forgiven. Again, that is an area that they're talking about changing. One thing that you do want to do if you're listening is make sure every year you're doing a capital gains analysis on your portfolio to determine, if there are any investments that should be sold to kind of offset potential gains that you have. You also don't want to own all the same type of investments in different accounts. Now, this is a common mistake that I see most investors make. They'll have a few of their favorite investment funds, which they'll own in their IRA, they'll own in their Roth IRA, and they'll own in their individual account. Well, there are what could be potentially better investments to own in a non-retirement account tax-wise than investments to own in a IRA. Good example of that is if you have investments that are more active, that are more regularly traded, you'd probably want to be more active with your IRA accounts for those strategies, because in an IRA, you don't pay taxes on the buys and sells with capital gains. You pay taxes when you take withdrawals out. So these are areas and income surprises that catch people off guard. In fact, when you're getting into the income surprises, it's also a big topic that things like Scott can get involved with. And Scott, I know you've talked a little bit in the past too. If your income goes above a certain threshold, it can impact your health care costs.
Absolutely. That's something to really pay attention to, because if you are, getting a premium tax credit with your health insurance and your income increases, you'll lose that. And you could, at the end of the tax year, get a healthy bill for your taxes. So you want to pay attention to that. Also, that holds true with Medicare. Married couples that are making over $176,000, you will see your Medicare Part B premiums be higher than under the $176,000. So you want to always, make sure that your, Roth IRAs are accounts, Nolan, that are not counted as income when it comes to the health insurance threshold. So those are always things you want to pay attention to and make sure. And that's, one of the things that Nolan and I work hand in hand with is we'll sit down and go through a client's needs and discuss how we can make them take advantage of the tax laws out there for their health premiums.
Yeah, and I just can't stress enough, if you're listening to today's show, I encourage you to take action now. Get your 2021 tax roadmap put together. Let's talk about ways that we can look to reduce taxes, because when this administration says they're going to tax people over $400,000 or $1 million, I wouldn't believe them. Don't believe them. They're going to come after your money. They're going to come after all the money. They cannot continue to do trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars of free handouts without dramatically raising taxes on all of us in the future. But the good news is you as an American, you don't have a patriotic duty to pay more than your fair share in federal taxes. But knowledge is the key, and one of the ways that you can do that is get a tax roadmap put together to look for some unique strategies that you can do now or sometime in the future. We're more than happy to work with you and or your accountant to develop a solid plan to keep these increased taxes hopefully away from your family.
Yeah, you owe it to yourself and your family to educate yourself on everything that's going on out there, because you hear so much. I had an event this past week, and we talked about that, and they said, with Medicare, they say, so everything I'm seeing on TV is true. I go, well, yes. Oh, no, wait a minute, wait. No, for Medicare, what they're telling you is fairly accurate, but most everything else you're seeing on TV is garbage. So educate yourself, pay attention to what's going on. This is crazy, crazy times, and There again, you can vote when it's voting time. You can make a difference by voting.
And if I can editorialize here really quick, a good way, I think, to educate yourself is to check out previous editions of the show, America's Retirement Headquarters. You can look either on the YouTube channel, or you can search via podcast medium of your choice, Spotify, Google, iTunes. The thing is that these are all tax proposals that are being thrown against the wall to just kind of see what sticks. It is not the law of the land yet. There will probably be some pushback on it for a little while if it does come to fruition. If it doesn't come to fruition, it is still important to go ahead and develop that plan, because sooner or later, one of these things is going to stick. And so if you are prepared, if you start building that ark before the flood comes, you'll be better prepared for it. And again, have that tax map run. Pick up the phone, give a call, schedule a time to speak with America's Retirement Headquarters, 419-794-3030. You can always find them online at americasretirementheadquarters.com. And we want to thank you so much, as we do every week, for joining us this week, taking time out of your weekend schedule to spend time with us. Hope you have an excellent week ahead of you. And Nolan and Scott, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with the final word.
Well, I'd say as summer gets here, one thing that I do every year is trying to do something big and challenge myself. Again, this year, going to be taking my 14-year-old down to live on a deserted island for a week. Yeah, it should be awesome. It's something different. I challenge you and all of our listeners to do something big this year. Make something unique. Check something off your bucket list. There's never enough time to do all the things that you want to do. So do something and get it on the schedule. Make it happen, and enjoy the week. And we look forward to seeing everybody soon.
America's Retirement Headquarters is located at 1700 Woodlands Drive in Maumee, Ohio. You can reach them by calling 419-794-3030 or online at americasretirementheadquarters.com. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments can fluctuate, and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Nolan Baker is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. Please consult with your attorney, accountant, and/or tax advisor for advice concerning your particular circumstances. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Nolan Baker, Ohio Insurance License Number 27787.